Welcome back. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Let's begin with some of the breaking news. Andriy Yeremak, the head of the office of the Ukrainian president, is heading to the United States. This follows yesterday's peace talks between the Ukrainian and Russian delegations in Istanbul. We will be updating you on the visit as more information becomes available, so stay tuned. And we continue. Poland's lower house of parliament is set to hold a vote of confidence for Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government next Tuesday, June 10th. The announcement was made by the Speaker of the Chamber, Szymon Hołownia. In a televised address on Monday, Tusk announced he would ask for the vote of confidence in his government following the defeat of his party's candidate Rafał Trzaskowski in Sunday's presidential runoff. Trzaskowski lost to Law and Justice's Karol Nawrocki by fewer than 2 percentage points. If Tusk's government fails to win the vote of confidence, the prime minister will have to step down. Then the task of nominating a new head of the Polish government will fall to the outgoing president Andrzej Duda. The candidate he puts forward will have to gather enough support in parliament to be sworn in. If the parliament fails to agree on a new prime minister, early parliamentary elections will be inevitable. Karol Nawrocki was plucked from political obscurity to run on a right-wing ticket for the opposition Law and Justice Party. Now, partners across Europe and the world want to know what the next president of Poland will stand for when his term begins in August. Here's a look into the future of Nawrocki's palace.
This is Poland's next president, a right-wing historian with a Hollywood smile.
Mr. Nawrocki, do you believe you can still win the election?
Yes, still, I will.
Handpicked from the political wilderness by the opposition Law and Justice Party, his campaign imitated Donald Trump's rallying against the old world order, and it is this platform of national sovereignty and a deep skepticism of the European Union that will likely underpin Nawrocki's term in the presidential palace.
It's really the guy who is a sort of accidental politician in many ways. I don't think even Law and Justice knows what he's gonna do, and he is very far right, very anti-Ukrainian.
At the heart of this election has been a paralysing cohabitation between outgoing President Andrzej Duda, a Law and Justice ally, and Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The president is the commander-in-chief of the Polish Armed Forces, represents the country on the world stage through state visits, and must give the green light to new ambassadors or military generals. They also have a veto power, which Duda has used to stall the coalition government's proposed reforms, a pattern that is set to continue under Nawrocki.
We will save Poland. We won't allow Donald Tusk's power to be all-encompassing, the monopoly of power, the evil power.
That means domestically, issues like the liberalisation of abortion access and women's rights, which Tusk and presidential challenger Rafał Trzaskowski have advocated for, are set to be put on the back burner by the socially conservative Nawrocki.
I am a Catholic, I am a Christian, so my general position is of course in favor of life. In the case of rape, Polish law regulates this. The decision obviously belongs to the woman.
Away from home, he's built his strongest ties with Washington, briefly meeting with President Trump in May and getting the White House administration's endorsement ahead of the final runoff. But from Berlin to Brussels, it's believed Nawrocki will rail against foreign influence and what he calls EU overreach, possibly reigniting the confrontational tone used by the previous Law and Justice administration.
So what's your message to European allies?
I'm coming. This is my message. I'm coming.
And on Ukraine, Nawrocki's tone has hardened, ruling out the war-torn country's accession to NATO, which ends a rare cross-party consensus on the issue, saying Poland will only continue delivering support after putting its own interests first.
If President Zelensky treats us badly, we have the right to say it. And millions of Poles in Poland today would like to say it, but cannot say it, because immediately there is the slogan that we are speaking Putin's propaganda.
Nawrocki has never previously had an electoral mandate, but his words paint a picture of a man determined to double down on a nationalist fight for Polish identity. Aaron Darman, TVP World.
We will will work together and we will strengthen that alliance no matter what. These are the words of former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Georgette Mosbacher, with which the former diplomat summed up the recent Polish presidential runoff and the impact it may have on the relationship between Warsaw and Washington.
There seems to be this idea that somehow it's been in crisis. It hasn't been. The United States understands how important Poland is. We also understand that they have taken on the responsibility of getting to 5%, that they have invested in their own security. We want our partners to be full partners. We know that Poland is one of our most important allies in the world. And I don't think that that has been damaged in any way. Regardless of who the president of Poland is, the United States is going to work with Poland because there are 10 million Poles in the United States. We have a shared history. We have great respect and admiration for the Poles. And I think that that is only going to continue to grow regardless of who the president of Poland is. We will work together and we will strengthen that alliance no matter what.
The Dutch government has collapsed after Geert Wilders' far-right Party for Freedom left the ruling coalition. His coalition partners reacted with anger, with the leader of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy saying Wilders chose his own interests over right-wing policies. Geert Wilders announced the decision on social media after a meeting of leaders of the four parties making up the Dutch ruling coalition. On May 26th, Wilders said that he will leave the government if his demands regarding migration are not met. His far-right Party for Freedom won the 2023 election and secured 37 seats in the Dutch parliament. The party held a key role in the coalition and insisted on adding 10 new measures to the coalition agreement. Among them were closed borders for asylum seekers, increased military border controls, fewer asylum centers, and a deportation of Syrian refugees holding temporary residence permits.
We proposed a plan to close the borders to asylum seekers by stopping them, sending them away, and closing asylum centers instead of building more. A stricter policy to ensure that the Netherlands does not become one big asylum center. We presented a plan for that, and a number of you were there. I asked the coalition partners for their support for that. Former coalition partners, I should say, at least for the majority of those measures. They didn't come out in support of it. Instead, they said, just submit the plan, or maybe we can submit a motion to investigate it, or just ask your minister to do something. Of course, there's no guarantee that something will make it through the Cabinet of Ministers or the House of Representatives. So I could do nothing else now than to say that we withdraw our support for this cabinet. I've also just informed the Prime Minister that I withdraw the Party of Freedom's ministers from the cabinet and that we can no longer bear responsibility for this.
Russian forces launched a deadly attack on Ukraine's Sumy on Tuesday, just a day after peace talks in Istanbul failed to make significant progress. The attack, carried out using multiple launch rocket systems, killed at least 2 people and wounded around 20 others, including a 17-year-old. The strike caused widespread damage, setting 2 cars ablaze and damaging residential buildings and a medical facility. Authorities reported that many of the wounded were in critical condition. This strike follows renewed hostilities in the Sumy region, an area repeatedly targeted since Russia's invasion in 2022. The attack occurred after the second round of Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul, where no significant breakthroughs were made. The head of Ukraine's presidential office is heading to Washington, D.C. in the wake of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul. Our correspondent Alex Cadier is in Istanbul and covered the talks for us. So, hello, Alex. What will Ukraine want to achieve with this trip to the U.S.?
Well, Claudia, this was the big question in the last 48 hours that we've been here reporting on this meeting, covering this meeting between Russia and Ukraine. Clearly, where is the United States? Because from the Ukrainian perspective, Russia has been slowing the process, frustrating the process, making it very difficult for peace to be achieved. That is the view from Ukraine, because Russia did not even share its negotiating position before coming to the meeting. Instead, they just shared it on the day, making progress apart from that important prisoner swap, basically impossible towards peace. So clearly, Ukraine wants to see more leverage from the United States, wants to see more pressure from Donald Trump on Russia, more sanctions from the United States, from Europe, pressuring Russia to bring an end to this war. Because from the Ukrainian perspective, the only thing that will stop Russia is strength. And for them, the strongest partner they can have right now remains the United States. That is what Andrei Yermak will hope to achieve in Washington, D.C. Claudia.
Thank you so much, Alex Kadier, reporting live from Istanbul. The holiday from history is over, and now we're in an environment where the focus of the spending on security is long-term, said Louis Virenga, lecturer in international relations at the Baltic Defense College, in an interview for TVP World. The expert stressed the need for coordination, trust, and action among countries to address defense gaps. He also emphasized that Europe is now taking defense more seriously, acknowledging that the changing security environment requires long-term investment and commitment. Here's what Virenga had to say.
Absolutely, yes. I think we're at a point of no return, at least for the medium to long term. And I think that this will be a decades-long understanding that, you know, the holiday from history is over, and now we're in an environment where this is, you know, the focus and the spending on security is long term.
And so this marks the end of our news broadcast, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment, and we hope to see you there.